276 girls loaded into trucks, driven into the dark. A silence screamed across Nigeria. And then the world finally looked. This is not just a story about a hashtag. It's about what happens when a cry for help goes global. And still, some girls never come home. This is the story of the Chibok girls. The night they disappeared, the voices that refused to forget them, and the justice still waiting to arrive. Welcome to Omar's Story Nook, where history gets spicy, legends get a remix, and imagination runs wild. Every tale you hear is a whisper of Omar, echoing across time, culture, and the soul. This one begins in a classroom, chalk dust in the air, the low hum of girls reviewing notes beneath flickering lantern lights. April 14th, 2014, Government Girls Secondary School, Chibok. They were daughters of farmers and traders, orphans of a conflict they never asked for. They had chosen school over silence, books over bombs, and that night they were studying for final exams, hoping, dreaming, despite it all. Outside the gate, a truck pulled up, men dressed as soldiers, calm, commanding. They said there was danger nearby. They said they were there to help. The girls obeyed because that's what they were taught to do. But these were not soldiers. And this was not a rescue. It was a theft. A coordinated vanishing. The night swallowed them. 276 girls loaded into trucks, driven into the dark. A silence screamed across Nigeria. And then the world finally looked. This is not just a story about a hashtag. It's about what happens when a cry for help goes global. And still, some girls never come home. This is the story of the Chibok girls. The night they disappeared, the voices that refused to forget them, and the justice still waiting to arrive. In the arid corners of northeastern Nigeria, a movement was born from pulpits but grew fangs in the forest. Boko Haram, a name that chills the spine. In Hausa, it means Western education is forbidden. At first, they were preachers, voices condemning foreign influence, calling for purity, promising justice, but words turned to weapons. Their message sharpened, their followers multiplied. They became a militia, a shadow army, moving on motorbikes and pickup trucks, guided by fire and fear. The enemies were many, politicians, soldiers, infidels, but their favorite targets? Schools, especially those with girls. Because to Boko Haram, an educated girl is a dangerous idea. They burned classrooms to the ground. They murdered teachers mid-lesson. They attacked buses filled with students, not to steal supplies, but to erase futures. And in April 2014, they came for the school in Chibok. The military had pulled out days earlier. The warnings were ignored. The girls were alone, left with notebooks, candles, and hope. They heard trucks, then boots, then lies. The men said they were evacuating the school, but the girls were herded like cattle. Some tried to jump, others were beaten back. The buildings were set ablaze. By morning, only ash and silence remained. 276 girls were gone, ripped from the heart of their village. This wasn't just kidnapping, it was war against knowledge, against autonomy, against girlhood itself. The first reports were whispers, a missing school group, a suspected raid. No details, no confirmation, but the whispers grew teeth. Photos of anguished parents hit the internet. Journalists scrambled to the edges of the war zone. Nigerian activists took to the streets holding cardboard signs, chanting the girls' names, marching in the capital like their lives depended on it, because they did. Then came the hashtag, hash bring back our girls. It started in Nigeria, then caught fire. Suddenly, the world was watching. Malala Yousafzai, a survivor of terror herself, sent a message to the girls. Michelle Obama posed with the sign. Celebrities tweeted. Talk shows opened with solemn monologues. Rallies were held in New York, London, Berlin. The pressure worked at first. Leaders condemned the attack. Embassies promised support. Surveillance drones were offered. Negotiations were hinted at, but weeks turned to months. The hashtags kept trending. The girls did not come home. The Nigerian government fumbled. The military gave contradictory updates. Officials insisted they were close, then admitted they had no idea. Meanwhile, Boko Haram released videos. The girls, now veiled, sat silently in rows, reciting religious texts. Their names were no longer spoken, their faces nearly erased, and the world, so loud in the beginning, began to quiet. The signs were taken down, the camera crews moved on, other tragedies took center stage, but the hashtag remained, floating in cyberspace, a digital monument. A cry not yet answered. Years passed. Slowly, girls began to return. Some escaped. In the night, they slipped past guards, ran barefoot through thorns, followed the stars to freedom. Some were rescued during raids, shaking, malnourished, eyes haunted. Others were exchanged like currency, traded for captured militants. By 2024, over 160 girls had come back, but dozens still missing. And those who returned, they did not all return to welcome. Many came back with children, babies born in captivity, fathers unknown or too well remembered. Some were embraced with tears and praise. Others were met with side eyes, gossip, whispers that called them traitors, even witches, because war doesn't end with escape. It lingers in stares, in shame, in trauma that sleeps under skin. Some girls couldn't speak, others spoke too much, and no one believed them. They were offered therapy sometimes, scholarships occasionally, but what they needed most, safety, space, and the freedom to be more than symbols, was harder to find. What Boko Haram stole was not just physical freedom, it was innocence, opportunity, identity. And even as the world moved on, as new hashtags trended and other conflicts claimed attention, these girls remained, not as headlines, but as mothers, survivors, living reminders of a country's silence and a world's short memory. Still in Chibok and beyond, mothers kept waiting, schools kept fearing, and the question remained, how do you rebuild a future when the world forgets your name? Chibok was never just a town. It became a name that carried both grief and defiance, a wound and a warning. A generation of girls simply wanted to learn. They faced poverty, patriarchy, terror, and still, they showed up. They chose pencils over fear. And while the world's spotlight moved on, Chibok did not. The parents, they kept marching. Every week they gathered, in rain, heat, or silence, holding framed photos, speaking their daughters' names so the world wouldn't forget them. The activists, they kept organizing new campaigns, school safety policies, protests that echoed far beyond Nigeria's borders. Some survivors, they became counselors, helping new victims of abduction. Some became teachers, standing where their education had been interrupted. Some simply tried to live, to laugh again, to find joy that wasn't shadowed by trauma. And still, some girls are out there, in forests, in hidden camps, in memories that refuse to stay buried. So when someone says, it was just a moment, you say, it was never just a moment. It was a movement, a reckoning, a symbol of what happens when girls are seen as threats for daring to imagine something more. And if you're still listening, still asking, then you're part of it too. Because this story doesn't end until every girl comes home. Some names vanish from headlines, some stories fade from memory, but the girls of Chibok, they remain. In dreams unfinished, in songs not yet sung, in the quiet bravery of those who still ask, where are they? Until the next whispers of Oma, stay listening. The abduction of the Chibok girls. A hashtag without justice